Hello
folks,
and
the vice.
welcome.
We're all
We're
talking
so
at one
excited.
time.
We're so excited. We don't even know where to start. We can't wait to talk about the debate. Welcome to the breakdown where Rick Wilson is beaming with excitement. I am Tara Setmayer, and we just finished the vice presidential debate, and there's lots to get into. Clearly, it was not the shit show that last week was. We got a little bit more of a traditional debate. However, we do have some things to say about some things that we noticed. So if you want to ask us questions, please tweet us, #AskTheBreakdown. And Rick and I will take your questions along with our guests tonight, our fellow Lincoln Project cohorts. Sarah Lenti and Steve Schmidt will be with us first. And then later on, we will have Reed Galen and Mike Madrid join us. We're going to get right into our analysis. But first, we wanted to roll a clip or two to remind us of what we just witnessed. Clip 1.
Were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that, and frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Well, Tara, I thought that was an opening salvo for the night that brought to the mind of the vast majority of Americans who list COVID as their number one problem right now. They view COVID as the centrality of their political decision making in many ways, and I think that was a very wise way to lead out. Now, of course, Mike Pence was engaged in a Trumpian level of mendacity tonight. He just does it with slightly less eye rolling and lip pursing. So let's go ahead and roll that second clip as we continue through the debate.
I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done.
Mike Pence also does it with slightly less makeup on his face. He looked awfully pasty as he was lying his way through this entire debate. Listening to Mike Pence sit there and try to say that Donald Trump and Mike Pence, who was the titular head of the COVID response task force, were not market failures, was laughable. The American people can see with their own eyes and see the results, the devastating results of their failure. Listening to Mike Pence try to mansplain it to everyone that we're all crazy. We didn't really see what we saw. It's not a big deal that there's 210,000 dead Americans and 7 million infected. No. Donald Trump has done more than anyone. Yeah, Donald Trump's presidency has killed more Americans than any other president based on his failed leadership. So on that note, let's bring in Sarah and Steve Schmidt. Steve Schmidt, your initial reaction to what we just saw.
Well, I thought she did wonderfully tonight. I thought she did a great job. I think that Pence, just like when you step back from it, right, from all the hyper analysis of it, he's just fundamentally unlikable. And I don't know, Tara, I have a special revulsion to him. I always have. And I wonder if it's something we share in common. It's a New Jersey thing, right? Because I can't I look at this guy and so first off, right, he was earlier in his career, he was a shill for the cigarette industry, right? Like he was telling people, right, smoke them, right, good stuff, great for you, doesn't cause cancer, did it with the same pious, squinty-eyed sincerity, no doubt. But I can't, it's inconceivable to me that anybody could listen to this guy and that the reaction could be anything other than mouth agape amazement at how profoundly full of shit he is. I mean, he just reeks of sincerity, right? Like at a biblical level, right? I thought, wow, he really, all of the stuff about, he won't ever be alone with a woman, right? In the room and, and all this stuff. I mean, like truly, he is uncomfortable with women. He was in he was up there. I thought he was kind of the mansplaining and the condescension towards Senator Harris, but like, and to Susan Page, it was kind of like, he was like a commander from The Handmaid's Tale. Like, where's an Aunt Lydia when you need one, right?
I don't want that visual. I don't want that visual.
Right? He's having a hard time with that. I do wish I thought she was great. I give her an A. I would give her an A double plus, but for three things in the course of the debate, which I wish she had done. And like that, I hope Vice President Biden will be ready for. Number one, 47,000 Chinese people got into the country after he supposedly closed the border. It's bullshit, right? The border was never closed, right? Didn't happen, right? So like in the debate, like don't over prepare, but you need a card on that. Got to have a card on that, right? 47,000 Chinese people came into the country after he supposedly closed the border. Two, right? They have to be able to go deeper on the comparisons of mortalities, right? Countries with competent leaders, right? Angela Merkel, 150,000 more Americans alive, right? If we had the same statistics, right? When she did that piece, yes, they lied, but there's causality between the lie and the death and suffering. The last part of this, and I like being on LPTV because I can speak in my native New Jersey. I'm dissatisfied with the answers across the board on the question of the peaceful transition of power. Right, this isn't something we fuck around with in this country. Right, the president of the United States. Right, I watched it. I'm one of the 70 million people. The Proud Boys and these fascist militias, they all believe, and no one has set them straight, by the way, they all believe that they got a weapons ready order, they believe they got a lock and load order, and they're waiting for the word from the commander-in-chief. And he said, hey, if I don't win, maybe a peaceful transition of power. Pence did nothing to reassure me on this tonight. And I think that both Senator Harris and Vice President Biden, they got to tighten up on this. This is a big thing for the entirety of the country. The business leadership of the country, the retired military leadership of the country, the retired political leadership of the country, the existing political leadership of the country. We got to talk about the seriousness of this. This is an unprecedented threat, so far afield from what's anything normal in American politics that we got to deal with it. And it's not been adequately dealt with the seriousness the issue deserves. But I thought she was terrific, really likable. Pence, just like he's got that Emperor Palpatine thing going, right? Just
I said the same thing.
The Rona eye.
Right? He looks sinister, right? He's like, woof, like, sinister. Just not, don't like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
go ahead.
So, Sarah, let me take your temperature on tonight. I had a couple people texting me during the debate that the mansplaining and the sort of interrupting was a tonal problem for Pence, even more than the sort of like over the top Trump ass kissing of the answers. What do you think about that? Or were you watching the affect or the answers?
I was watching the way he was talking over her constantly. He wasn't paying attention to the moderator. He was as bad as Trump. He just did it more respectfully, I'd say. And Kamala was composed. She waited despite the fact that he kept going over his time. You know, I was impressed by her composure this evening. And the thing that I'd say that I would love to see them drill down more on is the fact that 210,000 people are dead because this administration refused to take it head on January 28th. They waited until March 13th, which I remember that day. It's my son's birthday. We aren't having holidays like we should. Thanksgiving and this upcoming, the holiday season in December. School is not normal. It's just our way of life has been disturbed. 11 million jobs have been lost and not recovered. I would like them to keep prosecuting that. And then when Pence was going big on the pro-life and your late-term abortion, I wanted to scream because it doesn't matter that 210,000 people have died. Doesn't matter that my family friend, he had been married for 48 years to his wife and his family, died alone in a hospital, couldn't even FaceTime them. The trauma that they are facing right now is unreal. These are normal Americans that live in Midlothian, Virginia, that voted for Trump. And I just would like to see more and more of them prosecuting this administration for not doing their job.
I do think that was the strongest lead out she could have possibly had, was saying you're botching this assignment is a disqualifier. You're out of the race. Yeah. And I do think, to Steve's point, the idea that Mike Pence could not bring the moral courage up inside of himself to say, absolutely, if there's a contested transition of power, I will stand with the Constitution, the law, and the results of the election. Instead, he did what he is a classic Nuremberg guy. He is going to be just following orders till the last thing, and it won't end well if he becomes one of the agents of an illegal attempt to seize and hold power outside the election and the Constitution. So I think we have a couple more clips.
Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions. No. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
That was part of her prosecuting the case on a number of issues against the Trump administration. And it's, the fact that she was able to list it methodically and continue to do that with a number of issues and relating it to how it impacts average Americans, I thought was very effective on Kamala's part. She did that on a few issues, but the healthcare discussion, the COVID discussion, it was difficult it was uncomfortable almost listening to Mike Pence try to act as though what was happening wasn't happening. I just don't see how that went over well with the American people. I'm very curious to see how this is focus grouped, what the reaction was for independents and for women.
Yeah, well,
I mentioned something.
Go ahead.
I was saying I've done a lot of debate prep in my time, and what I always tell the candidates is there's only 3 types of questions you'll ever be asked. Right? You'll be asked I know questions, I think questions, and I feel questions, and really all bad answers are a result of a misalignment of category of answer from question. And Mike Pence missed a lot of those EQ cues. Right. The second thing I say to candidates as you're advising them on debate prep. It's not a talking exercise, it's a listening exercise, right? And so you want to listen. You want to become a very good listener, right? And so sometimes the way you prep for debates is just go through a debate watching an opponent with the sound off. Watch their verbal mannerisms, watch their verbal cues. And I've always done that with candidates. And so let's look at that Mike Pence clip, right? What did we see there, right? So Kamala Harris is just dissecting him. She's taking him apart factually. Everything she said there is really true. It is true that the Trump administration is in court right now seeking to end coverage for pre-existing, right? That's the truth. That's what's going on, right? In reality. And then you saw him look right, that snide sneak at Kamala Harris. You saw him with his disrespect for her all through this, right? The condescension. But then the second thing you saw him do, which he did all through the debate, is the head shaking. Is he sitting there shaking his head? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's dishonest even in body language. That's how full of shit he is, right? I mean, as he's sitting there, right, nonstop through this entire debate, right? If you watch this thing, right, every time his head is shaking, no, right, is an example of something that she's saying that's just indisputably accurately true, and he's lying, right? And if you counted up the amount of minutes the guy's got his head shaking back and forth, lying to you non-verbally, right, it's for a lot of the debate. I think she just kicked his ass.
Well, I want to say one thing. We need to bring in another clip because Steve got to the point of Mike Pence being completely full of shit. And as we know, things that like shit land on shit. So we're going to go with a clip that's very special to all of us. Oh, the crew's pissed at me now. I got ahead of them. We tried to book The Fly as a guest. Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, we don't have the audio?
We don't need it.
We had some great audio underneath it, though.
All I want to know was The Fly wearing a mask?
There it is.
Was The Fly wearing a mask? That's all I want to know.
It was not. It was not at all. That's not Fly. It was on their side of the divider. It was maskless, as was Mother Pence. If you saw it,
she was.
You saw Kamala Harris's husband responsibly wearing a mask at a moment in time where most of the White House staff and the Joint Chiefs and all manner of members of the National Security Council are all infected with COVID because of the spreader-in-chief. It's clear that Mrs. Pence went with the "go fuck yourself" message to the American people. And so really just another extraordinary piece of arrogance from these people and their abuse of their positions of power and their total recklessness. It's unbelievable.
In the department of Go Fuck Yourself, I would like to air for our audience, if you haven't seen it yet, one of our favorite ads of the year. Guys, if we could cue up the Covita ad, it is one of the things that it is. And just a little inside LPTV truth. This ad started the night Trump landed with Steve and I on the phone singing to each other at midnight.
And can I say that everybody should feel free to sing along at home? Everybody. If we could bring the whole LP together singing.
Don't cry for me, White House staffers. The truth is I will infect you. All through my tweeting, my mad existence, I broke my promise, won't keep my distance. I always say too much, never mind the thousands of lies I have told to you. As for wearing masks and acting sane, that is nothing that I will ever do. So don't cry for just will kill
To
you.
you.
While on my joyride, I spread the virus. I broke my
I don't my promise.
Won't keep my
I keep
distance.
my distance.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Where is Kimberly Guilfoyle when you need her? That's all
Well,
we needed
I
was
have.
to end
You know
it with
what,
a.
Tara? You know what, Tara? I know we should talk briefly about Kamala Harris and the importance of her on the stage tonight, and we will loop back to that. But while you mentioned Kimberly Guilfoyle, I would like the tech guys to cue up an ad because Steve Schmidt today had a very special interaction with the President of the United States. And
Oh, yes.
Steve, would you like to run that down for us and roll out your surprise for the President?
Well, I woke up this morning and the super spreader in chief had attacked me again. He's attacked us, all of us individually and as an organization. And I had the opportunity to reply to him on a wide range of subjects covering his malfeasance. But really, one of the things that I try to point out in my response to him is his total disgustingness and failure and incompetence as president of the United States, the stain that he'll leave behind, and the fact that he's a month out from humiliation. I don't know what will be of him, but there'll be no honor. He'll be remembered as the worst president in history. And so, I wanted to present this ad here this evening from the Lincoln Project, that focuses appropriately, I think, on the Trump family, a subject that we can never talk enough about as we get ready, not just to remove the most incompetent president in American history, the worst president we've ever had, but the most disgusting first family we've ever had as well.
Donald Trump has no shame. At the presidential debate, he attacked Joe Biden's sons, Beau, who died of brain cancer after distinguished military service, and Hunter, who also served and later struggled with addiction. This is a man that called soldiers who died in American wars suckers and losers. It's no surprise Trump would diminish their sacrifices and lie about their service. After all, Donald Trump can't stand to be reminded of his failures. Failures like his own son, Donald Trump Jr. The bravest thing Jr. did was offer to write a check to pay off his dad's porn star problem. To reward Jr. for his loyalty, Trump's super PAC pays Don Jr.'s girlfriend. Greed, lust, dishonesty, and corruption. These are the Trump family's values. On November 3rd, ask yourself, are they yours?
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
It's beautiful.
Steve, I'm glad we rolled out the soft version first.
Fantastic.
I was going to say, if he attacks again tomorrow, we're going to go negative.
We'll really turn up the pressure if he goes at it tomorrow.
Can I just say something before we go to Sarah? That ad, the brilliance of that ad is it reminds us of the absolute duplicity and hypocrisy that comes out of this White House and all their collaborators when they try to attack Biden or Kamala on any of those issues. You've got to be freaking kidding me. And Kamala tonight did an amazing job going after them on foreign policy. I was thrilled that she brought up the subject of Russian bounties as she was ticking them off. I was cheering her on. The Russian bounties, calling our military men suckers and losers. And that was one of the highlights of the night for her. And I think we have that clip, and then we'll get to Sarah.
The vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get.
So but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have
add,
to
but
weigh
if,
in here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh in.
speaking.
Yeah, you
So
can have 15
I
more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the Vice President
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm
Thank
were
you.
you
Thank
when
you,
your
Senator
children
Harris.
couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
That was not the clip I wanted, but that was a good one also because it showed us how she was not playing around, right, Sarah?
Yeah, and I can mention, so a couple of things, what is this? A couple of things that we know that she did say. She reminded Vice President Pence that Russia played in the 2016 election, and we know that he's playing in the 2020 election, and that President Trump listens to President Putin, whereas the FBI director has said that Russia is involved in this election. And then she went on to the Russian bounties and what we're paying. She talked about the price on a person's head. And then Pence then said, he reveres the U.S. military, and I wanted to barf. But the other thing that I wanted to quickly raise is that, since 1789, we've been electing presidents, and it doesn't go past me that we've had one female that has been on the presidential debate stage, Hillary Clinton, and then 3 women that have been on the vice presidential debate stage. This is the first woman of color, the first child of an immigrant. And it says something huge. And it also says something, and Tara, you can weigh in with me here. I'm not trying to bring the tone down, but women haven't yet reached the highest levels of government. We haven't yet reached the highest levels of academia or even business. And it's just a moment, and I want to celebrate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's what happens though here is that because the country is in such disarray, that I think it's lost on a lot of people the historic value of what's going on, because I don't even the documentary crew asked me a question about that, and it was interesting because I was like, it wasn't as emotional for me, and it probably should be, because I'm looking at it like the country's going to hell so badly that I don't even fully appreciate the historic nature of what's going on here, because I'm so focused on the institutional failure of what's happening. But you're absolutely right. It should be pointed.
And I'd say to you, the 20 to 20 something year olds and the 30 something year old women that I am in touch with and am friends with, and it matters to them that she's on that debate stage. It matters a lot. And so I think we'll see that bear out. I do with the
it absolutely,
as she continues to make her case.
Matters. It absolutely matters. I told the story about when I was 9 years old last week when we were talking about the debate and how shameful it was for young kids. And when I was 9 years old, I wanted to be Geraldine Ferraro, because in a mock debate in my 4th grade class, because it was so impactful to me as a 9-year-old girl to see a woman on the vice presidential stage. And she was the first. So absolutely, this matters too. I'm just talking about for me personally right now, because I'm a political nerd, but it is hugely important, just like Barack Obama's presidency was hugely important to the African-American community, and for young Black boys to see someone who looks like them in the most powerful position in the world. Kamala Harris represents that for young women of color all over this country of all ages, and someone that they can be proud of, just like Michelle Obama, regardless of politics. Take that out of it. We're just talking about images, and the importance of seeing people who look like you shows you that you can achieve that too, and that your color and your gender are not impediments. So
there's nothing harsh about the way she presents herself. She's just she's open. She's someone that you think you could be friends with, at least for me.
Likability is important, and women are judged more harshly, whether you like it or not. That's the way it is. For now, let's hope we can get past that, right? I think we have Mike Madrid with us, ready to bring him in momentarily. Mike Madrid was actually at the debate tonight, so I'll be very curious to hear what Mike has to say about things. Are we queued up for Mike? Okay, no problem. They're working it out because he is remote. Sarah, let me ask you another question along the lines of Kamala Harris, because I mentioned that women are judged more harshly. Do you think that her responses to Mike Pence are going to turn off men? The way she handled him?
I thought she was totally respectful. I thought she was respectful. She responded with facts. She wasn't rude. She didn't interrupt. Her husband got up on the stage. He was wearing his mask. I thought her decorum was wonderful. And I don't even think she went far enough in attacking the president or Mike himself.
I agree.
The
I
vice
agree.
president himself for the disaster. What is COVID? So I don't
Yep.
think there's anything there to attack her on in terms of the way she spoke to the vice president.
Yeah,
Or about the
I
president.
thought she could have. Right. I think that you could tell, as women in this game, that you're, what I'm sure she was drilled on, don't come across as an angry Black woman, especially
Yes.
since Mike
Yep.
Pence is so annoyingly folksy and calm and condescending. Keep it together. That's why you saw her smiling. And when she needed to, she scolded him because he was out of line. But you could tell there were times where she was trying to decide how far she should take it. And I think that that hesitation might have cost her points as far as going after him where they deserved to go after. There were parts of it where you could tell she was on and she was going for it, and parts where she held back. But overall, I think she did an excellent job and balanced it out well. I was concerned about how the body language and the interaction would come across, because a lot of times people don't react to what you say, they react to how you say it. And I thought she did a pretty good job of that. Better than expected
I
for
do
me.
too. Yeah, I do
Mike
too.
Madrid, are you ready? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm here.
No, just one of her comments towards the end, which I hadn't even focused on, was they were, attacking her about packing the courts, and she was like, "Okay, let's talk about packing the courts. You've put so many judges into, state, federal, and you haven't put one African American." I don't know if there's truth to that. We have to go fact check that, but I thought that was pretty amazing.
Did she say, she said about, because I missed that a little bit. I was taking notes on something else. And I heard her say something about that you didn't appoint not any African Americans
to any judgeships.
To the federal bench, right? Yeah. I think that's true. I actually think that's true. Yeah. She answered that question well, because what's going on with that. They're trying to back them into the corner of saying that the Democrats are going to pack the court so they can use it as an attack ad. Right. And they are not, I don't believe that Biden's going to pack the courts, but they want to use that as a rallying cry for the left. And they don't want to take that away from them. So that's why they're not answering that directly. So that's why they won't answer it directly. It's not because they plan on it. It's just that they know it's a rallying cry for the left. And if they say no or not, they don't want to suppress their enthusiasm. They want to make sure people go to vote and vote them in, and then they'll deal with it after. Mike Madrid, you were at the debate. I see your debate lanyard there. A, what did you have to do to get in there? B, were people wearing masks? And C, was it as bad in person? Was the ass kicking as bad in person as it was across the television? Because I think Kamala destroyed him.
Yeah, first, I guess it kind of pays to have friends in the right places, I guess. It was kind of a hard ticket to get a hold of, but it came at the last minute and seized the opportunity to get out here and be a part of it. Yeah, people, look, the university did a really, really impressive job.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Of making sure that people were passing protocols. Everybody was tested. There were a number of checkpoints you had to go through. There were fever, thermometers that people had to pass in order to get through. They actually required that you wear a standardized mask, and were handing them out, so you couldn't bring your own mask. It was extremely well done, and kudos to the University of Utah. I will say, however, having kind of watched this with a very wide, ideologically diverse group of women, the impression was very different than what I'm hearing here on TV with you guys. Very different. Having said that, look, I don't believe that the trajectory of the race changed at all one bit. And I guess I would say Kamala probably won because she did not lose. But there were a lot of going back and forth with this. It was a much more sleepy debate, of course, but there was nobody here who believed that there was a decisive winner at all. I think that there was some discussion. There was definitely some back and forth about who was scoring good points and who was not. I think there were a lot of people surprised at Pence's performance. I think that there was probably a problem with setting expectations so high for Kamala Harris. And again, look, as somebody who from California who's very, very familiar with her and her debating style and has watched probably every major debate she's been involved with since 1998, this was not her A game. This was not fire-breathing Kamala Harris. I've seen her much, much better. I've seen her much, much worse, incidentally. I think she did just fine. And I think that she probably could have prosecuted the case a lot better. I think women, Democratic women here and Republican women here agreed with that. Nobody thought it was bad. Nobody thought it was good. It just kind of was. But I think there were a lot more people listening a lot more around the university. And I think it's interesting to see the very different perspectives of people who are here as part of it as compared to what I think we're hearing both on social media from the different, bubbles that people are probably in.
Mike, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up because, sometimes we look at things through our lens and our prejudices on things because most of us, I think it would be fair to say that we just cannot stand Mike Pence. However, I can see where certain segments of the population would think that Mike Pence answered some of those questions. And there were a couple times where I said this is problematic. One of them was on the economy. As soon as when Kamala talked about that on day one that they're going to repeal the Trump tax cut, and then went on to how they were going to invest that money. Most people don't want to hear that. The tax cut affected 86% of the American people in a good way. And they don't want to hear that the government is going to take your money from you and reinvest it. That is redistribution to a lot of folks. And I thought that was a weak spot and a positive for Pence. He actually answered that well. That's the traditional Republican coming out of me. But I think a lot of independents can relate to that too. And so there were areas, and I think you heard my conversation with Sarah, where I think Kamala had been coached so much not to come across as the angry Black woman that she held back. You could tell she was holding back. There were areas that she could have prosecuted it tougher. But that's a tough balance, So did it change any minds?
Yeah,
I don't know. But she did no harm.
I think that was a mistake. I think she should have prosecuted the case harder. I've seen her do it many times over the past 20 years and watching her. She's very adept at it. She understands what that nuance is. Look, I think most people here thought she came out very, very, very strong early in her opening and did a really, really good job of introducing her biography to a lot of people who may be just tuning in to get a sense of who this remarkable woman is. And I think she did a very, very good job in that regards. I wish she would have kept that tempo up a little bit more. Do I think it was harmful? No, I don't think it was harmful. I don't think she did any damage to herself. I think that...
We lost Mike.
Oh, well, we lost Mike. Well,
he's back.
There he's back. He's back. Mike, we lost you for a second, but we're gonna bring Reed in here. Reed Galen, welcome. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Mike is right. I think though what Pence did very well though is once he realized what he was dealing with, he just went full Mike Pence. So he delayed, he dissembled, he didn't answer the question, whatever it was. And so I think that made it very, very hard for Senator Harris to actually stay on her game because, we've seen this before is that if Donald Trump was the high note of the, of the major note of his crazy, then Mike Pence is the minor note of it, which is it's no less truthful. It just takes longer and it sounds better. And so I think that's what you saw was that he wasn't going to do anything other than basically he got his 3 or 4 canned shots in. He was going to keep saying Green New Deal. He was going to keep saying rioting in the streets, which is really no different than the stuff they've been doing. But now, I think Mike is right. I don't know that anybody won or lost this. But I just want to say, too, that, for all of the complaining we do about how politics is out of control, this is boring politics. This is what it's supposed to be. I mean, you'd like them to answer questions when they get asked them. But at least tonally, it was different. I mean, I do think that Pence was rude. It talked over the senator a lot. I think Page let him do that. And it makes me question just broadly why we let the Commission on Presidential Debates organize these things anymore. They're clearly not ready for the 21st century, given that I think most of the people that make these decisions were born in the 19th century.
I was going to ask you what your thoughts were.
For the record,
second,
really
Mike.
quickly. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you, Reed, what your impression was of how it was moderated this time around. It was, not quite as combative as last week, but I thought that Susan Page tried to at least assert herself in the beginning and chastised Pence at times, but she also let him get away with a lot too. And I just don't.
Right.
I just think it's an impossible situation for these moderators. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I just think it is. Like I saw something on Twitter today that I've said many times myself, which is Trump and Pence. The Democrats in this deal are playing chess, and Trump and Pence are eating the pieces. It's not the same game.
Right.
And so I would say that they probably tried to prep her in a way that like Pence was going to be somewhat normal. And for this crew, he is somewhat normal. At least, he does a
Right.
good
It's a
facsimile
low
of a human
bar.
being. Right. But it still wasn't like he wasn't going to play by any rules. And so I think the debate commission should have known that. To your point, Sarah, I'm not sure there's anything they could do. Right. If he's going to be a jerk and talk over people, unless they're going to cut mics off, which they're also not going to do.
That's right. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry, you were trying to get in there.
Well, what I just want to say is Reed said something very important that was heard throughout here as well, which was there was kind of a lull that took place in sort of the first third, which was this is kind of boring, right? But that's what we were looking for, right? That's what we said that we were looking for, and there were some comments to that effect, which was, this is not like the spectacle that we saw in the presidential debate a week and a half ago. This was a discussion. Look, there was a lot of question as to whether or not these candidates were answering the question, and more importantly, were they being truthful? Were they being honest? That's legitimate. I don't think there was a whole lot of honesty here, but it was much more subdued. It was much more the boring, machinations of policy, and I'm not too sure how much people took from that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think this debate changed anyone's mind.
No, I think that's right, Sarah. And I think too, that was the one. If I had a criticism of the Biden Harris team, was that they, if Pence wasn't going to play by the rules, then every answer Kamala Harris should have given is, why are 210,000 Americans dead? Like I just would have kept prosecuting the case and just, it was famously Mitt Romney that says you get to ask the question you want to ask and I get to give you the answer I want to give you. And like they didn't. The Republicans are never going to play by the rules on this stuff, and the Democrats need to learn to take advantage of it sometimes.
You're 100%
remember
right
one other thing that struck me is that he kept saying that she was making up facts. He kept saying you can have your opinion, but you can't make up facts, and that drove me crazy. I'd like to go back and check all the facts that she said that weren't.
Right, and that was that was a canned line. That's a famous Moynihan line, and it was rich coming from the lyingest Trump administration in history. All they do is project what they do onto everyone else, and she should have had a better comeback for that. She didn't.
No, you're right, but I think Mike was right. Is that you could see there were times when she was ready to just let him have it, and at the last second she pulled back on the throttle.
Yeah.
And that's
I
too
said
bad.
that. I told you why. I'm telling you.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Tara, and I think that sucks. I think that's total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that when you watch her personality, I'm not going to talk over Sarah. I'll stop.
No, I'm sorry.
Don't be a Mike Pence read.
Good thing you're
I can't tell when
Tara.
people are done speaking. I can't tell.
Just kidding.
I can't tell.
There's always a little delay. Go ahead, Sarah.
I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
Oh no. Oh my goodness. Mike Madrid, what was one other thing that a major takeaway that you saw coming out of this that we have yet to bring up that viewers should pay attention to as we move forward after this debate? This is the only one. They don't get to do it again. What was your major takeaway that we haven't brought up yet?
I think the main thing to be focused on, and again, what I'm looking for is really the fact that at this point we're trying to figure out what the stylistic differences are going to be between the candidates as the last remaining undecided voters, who are really kind of low information voters at this point, are looking for. That's what I'm looking for, right? Is how is this going to change, or will it change the trajectory of the race? I think, again, this was probably a draw. If you came in liking Mike Pence, you probably still like him. If you came in liking Kamala Harris, you still like her. And that's a win for Biden and Harris. It just is, because the gap is so big, and it's likely to cement further in that direction. And I don't believe, again, that this is going to change much of the trajectory. I do think that there probably was a little bit too much hyping of expectations for Kamala. I do believe, just because I've seen how adept she is, that she could have prosecuted the case more. But that's basically like saying, we won the baseball game by 10 runs. We should have won by 14. I mean, these are minor differences. I think it's a Kamala win. I think it's a win for the Biden-Harris campaign because nothing changed and they're so far ahead. I think they're going to continue to keep going in that direction.
To that point, most of the country doesn't know her. You know what I mean? You're from California, so you're very familiar with her. All of us, we are more familiar with Kamala Harris than the average American watching this. And for the sliver that are still undecided, I kind of feel like she was talking more to the American people about their experiences and how things impact them, where Mike Pence was talking to his base and wasn't expanding that at all. You know, I tweeted that out. I was like, Kamala Harris was talking in terms that are more applicable to most of America. Mike Pence is yesterday's news, talking to a shrinking demographic that is holding on to power with dear life. And I think that I'll be curious to see what the reactions are after this, if she was able to break through at all on that. Let's go to some viewer questions. We have some, and then we can have you guys answer them because people are waiting with bated breath to see what we have to say. Let's get the first question. Why did Karen Pence not wear a mask when she got up on the stage after Susan Page made it crystal clear that it was a requirement? This was outrageous. Pamela, wear a fucking mask, Herman. You're right. It's outrageous. These people are incorrigible. And there it is. Mother without a mask. This is just indicative of, look at the body language with that also, by the way. That is just weird. What is with both the first family and the second family have the strangest dynamics with their spouses? I just pay attention to the spouses and the body language of Biden and Jill Biden and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris and her husband. Who do you think has the more loving, functional family? But anyway, go ahead, Rick, you were going to react.
The mask thing was, I mean, because Harris's husband wore a mask. So this was totally,
that's right.
To everybody's base or to whoever. Like the Pences don't believe, they think they're going to be fine with all this. I mean, the idea that they didn't get it is almost miraculous in some ways, given how much they were around everybody the last week. But yeah, she was never going to wear a mask on that stage. And if she had, Donald Trump, wherever he is in a hospital bed, and the residents would have gone more bananas. He would have taken another shot of steroids and gone back to rage tweeting about Mother. And that was not going to happen.
That's right. They've weaponized wearing a mask, which is absolutely absurd because it saves lives. Right. And as Kamala Harris was doing this evening, speaking to the American people, telling you that they don't care and what they're doing will hurt you. And that's a perfect example of it. Not wearing mask at this point is just so infuriating because they're literally telling you, F you, we don't care about your lives. It's a selfish
proverbial
act.
F you.
That's right. Next. Lisa Grant, do you agree that Trump will shed more women voters after Pence's obnoxious behavior tonight? Mike Madrid, you're the data guy. You were in the room. You were talking to people. What do you think?
How many more could he shed?
I know.
Well, that's actually exactly right. And again, I consciously was seeking the responses from women in the group, the observers, both Democrat and Republican. Reed is actually right. I think we're hitting a point of if you're a woman who's still voting for Donald Trump, whatever your rationale is, you're not going to move. There's going to be a historic gender gap here by a wide margin in November. So I'm not too sure that there are too many more women to lose or to get. But if there were, I think that the Trump-Pence campaign is going to do a really good job of pushing them out of the silo in the next 26, 27 days.
Sure. I think that the debate last week solidified that. Even for some women who may have liked some of the policies, whoever those are, that were on the fence, it was clear that women were repulsed by Donald Trump's behavior last week. And it wasn't, Mike Pence is just a creeper. And if you didn't like him before, you didn't like him now. And, his performance tonight is just a reminder of how much of a creeper he actually is. Next. Are flies attracted to COVID? Asking for a friend.
I think they are.
Oh, my goodness. So before we were broadcasting, I heard that you give off some type of odor if you have COVID. Thank God no one in my family has gotten COVID. But I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's the case, then clearly this fly was attracted to it because it wasn't.
Well, he's
leaving.
also got the Bob Costas eyes, so like he's got something going on.
Yeah.
So
Reed,
yeah,
I just want to do
noticed that.
a Lord of the Flies ad. That's what I want to see come out next, but we'll see.
That's like the Trump campaign and the White House. They are turning on each other right now. From my sources tell me that the White House staff they feel betrayed, and with no contact tracing and all the exposure, and Donald Trump still continuing to say "F you" and not wear a mask in the White House. He refused to stay isolated today. Earlier in the pre-show, we showed that ridiculous video that that they propped him up for, which I'm sure he took extra doses of steroids. They packed on more of the bronzer on him so he didn't look so flushed and pasty, that he's darker than I am, for goodness sakes. It's absurd. And people are upset about it. They just, COVID hits people at home. It's devastating families. And they're so cavalier about this that people are getting tired of it. Go ahead, Reed.
Just to give those kids the benefit of the doubt, right? The ones that work at the White House, like what in their time there at all made them believe that anybody they worked for cared about them? I would like to know. It's a viper's nest. They no one there likes each other at a senior level. There's no direction whatsoever other than to it's not even to get in Trump's orbit, because you can walk in the door. So it's more like, how do I make the other guy or gal look as bad as I can? So they should have, the folks there, as soon as they said, no, you don't have to wear masks, but they got home at night and I assumed watched the news and saw the death toll rising, they should be like, maybe I should wear a mask to work. And then one more question I have, Tara, is where's Jared?
Right. Where is Jared?
We
haven't seen him in weeks. That's a good question, Reed. I have a feeling something is coming out more formal on that.
I think Abe, the Twitter feed, should probably ask how many hours it's been since we've seen Jared and Ivanka.
And where is she? We haven't seen them since the debate last week, right?
Right.
I will say this, speaking of the family, I have a source that told me that Trump was acting so erratically on a fundraising call yesterday, that the staff was trying to get the family to intervene. He's just been out of control on the steroids. So as if he's, not out of control anyway, that now the family's going to intervene, that's going to make a damn bit of difference. But I thought that was an interesting little nugget. I was like, oh, now the family needs to intervene. It doesn't matter. You can't. Sociopaths don't learn. They're not controllable. Let's take another.
Doped up sociopaths, especially.
No kidding. Next. Do you feel that Harris, as a Black woman, really had to walk a fine line between keeping her cool and being pleasant so as to avoid the classic "see, she let her emotions get away from her," or is it just her normal state of calm? Spooky Tits McGee, that's funny. The Tits McGee reference I appreciate it. It's from Ron Burgundy, Anchorman. I love it. I already addressed this earlier, where I firmly believe that she was trying to walk that fine line of not just about women being emotional, but of being accused of being an angry Black woman. And so we saw that. And Mike Madrid, he's a Californian. He's familiar with her. And he even said that she has been tougher in the past and she's gone for the jugular in more aggressive ways before. And she did not bring her A game tonight, but she did no harm. So I think that there was definitely a discussion in debate prep of how far to push it. And they played it safe. Also, they played it safe.
And I'm wondering if they had to also play it safe. The vice president made a point that she had the most liberal voting record in the Senate. Again, I don't know that that's true. He mentioned AOC. So that might have been part of the play there too, in terms of just don't be too out there. Don't be too, it's just a question I have in my mind.
Yeah, I will say, to get Kamala Harris to say she doesn't want to ban fracking is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to catch that from their folks on the left. But that, for people who don't understand why that's important, the issue of fracking and whether they would or wouldn't ban it, it has to do with Western Pennsylvania, where fracking is incredibly important to the economy there and jobs, and parts of Ohio as well. That region of the country, fracking has been something that is important for their economic health. So we could argue over the efficacy of it as far as the climate and environmentalism is concerned, but what most people care about, how they're going to feed their families and what creates jobs for them. So that little back and forth was really more of a regional battleground specific issue about job creation or taking those away, similar to what Hillary Clinton said about getting rid of coal mines, and we're gonna bankrupt the coal industry.
I think the difference there was that she came
dangerous.
Well, the difference was, I think, that Hillary came off is mean spirited toward actual coal miners.
Oh, for
as
sure.
opposed to coal barons, right?
Oh yes, I was just using an example
coal
of
mines
where that was specific. Yeah, I mean, we can argue over that, but I'm just saying, like, that was something that people felt that was a huge mistake for her to go after that issue. It lost her, that part of Pennsylvania and possibly, other votes in Ohio. That's why those issues matter to those regions of the country.
Yeah,
so.
and I mean, I'm always interested sometimes on the Democratic side on the fossil fuel piece. We're going to ban fossil fuels. Really?
Mm-hmm.
You could say that we should use less fossil fuels. We should say that we don't want to import fossil fuels, or that we don't want to hurt the environment with fossil fuels, or any more than we have to. But like I don't know what percentage of cars in this country are electric cars, but it's not above 2%. So we need fossil fuels until we have something else. And they should say that, and they should just be like, we're working on this, and we're going to work towards something else.
Exactly. I mean, and the flip side of that too is that Republicans should also at least acknowledge that we need to be responsible with our environment and our climate. We can't sustain this forever. We need to do some things.
Right.
So, but then it's like all or nothing on that issue, and it shouldn't be. That's not good for anyone. And until on the left they can figure out how to make it not only more efficient but more cost effective. That's like, can we all work together on that? But until then, you're not a horrible person if you don't want to ban fossil fuels.
Well, not only that, it's not like people oh, you know what? I wish I could put Gatorade in my car. It's what makes the car go. It is what it is. They don't have any love for gasoline, right?
Right. And what makes the car go that you can afford? That you can afford.
Right.
Same thing with heating your house. There's an association there with that. It sounds great, but how are you going to pay for it? That matters. We'll take one last question, and then we will wrap up our post-debate show, since I know our viewers are always sending us good questions, and we're trying to get as many in as we can before we let the crew go, because it's a late night. We have one more? Other than Pence, which other banana Republicans think they're going to be president but never will be?
We're going to need a while on this one.
Oh my God. Go ahead, Sarah. Ladies first. I'll let each one of you in the lightning round answer it.
Nikki Haley, I think, is one of them. I'm just going to say that. And Don Jr., perhaps.
Don Jr. is not a real Republican, but yes, I agree. Reed.
I would say Rubio's at the top of my list. Pompeo's probably up there. Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately Cruz will not be likable enough, but maybe maybe Republican primary voters want someone they hate, or hates them as much as they hate each other. So, but yeah, I think, someone like Cotton, I think, scares me more than the rest of them.
Yeah, because he's actually smart.
Yeah.
Mike Madrid. Anyone that we haven't mentioned yet?
I'm of the school of thought that every politician in Washington, D.C. wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror and sees the next president of the United States. So I think they're all going to be shocking. I also think that there's going to be a day of reckoning if this race ends up breaking the way that I suspect that it might. I don't know that the Republican Party, as we know it, will be able to reconstitute itself with the current cast of characters. I think we're headed for something much bigger than that.
I agree, and I concur with every single one of your mentions, except we forgot one, which is Ivanka. She's not a real Republican either, but the Trump clan
but you know what?
is delusional.
But Trump owns all those state parties, right? I mean, they got a big infrastructure there.
For now, but the point is to beat them bad enough that they cannot show their faces in politics ever again, and hopefully with our efforts and those of the righteous anger of the American people, we will vote their asses on out of them. Javanka, Trump, Pence, Pompeo, all of the collaborators that are insufferable, out of here. November 3rd. Speaking of being out of here, we are wrapped. That is it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sarah. Big thank you to Rick and Steve. And don't forget to follow our new show, Vote for America, hosted by our good friend Jennifer Horn, which you can also find here on LPTV. And I think that's on at 1:30, but 1:30 on a couple days, I forget which, but check it out. You can go to the LPTV channel and you can check out Vote for America and get the skinny on that. And on that note, thank you guys so much. And we will see you again tomorrow night for another edition of The Breakdown.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.